Today, we're venturing outside the world of superhero comics and looking at a melding of two different genres. Arthurian lore, set in the Old West.
Obviously, both genres have been represented well in comics. The Old West has had such titles as Jonah Hex and the Two-Gun Kid, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention characters like Zorro and the Lone Ranger, though technically neither of them started in comics. Likewise, comics dealing with King Arthur date all the way back to Hal Foster's Prince Valiant, and you've also had comics like DC's Camelot's 2000 or Matt Wagner's Mage, and yeah, we'll be tackling those last two at some point, though Mage's final part has yet to actually be completed.
But, like I said, we're actually looking at a melding of the two genres today, and that would be Radical Publishing's Caliber, First Canon of Justice. Now, I should point out, Radical Publishing doesn't exactly have the greatest reputation in the comic book industry. They don't make comics as much as they make movie properties. Products that they can easily turn around and sell to Hollywood for big bucks. As a matter of fact, Radical is actually behind that Hercules movie that was out last year. No, not that Hercules movie, the other one with The Rock. Yeah, that's the one. Anyway, they also have the reputation for, well, not paying the people who work for them. But I am willing to separate a work of art from the people who, well, distribute it. And so, let's dive into Caliber, First Canon of Justice.
We open with a half Native American, half Frenchman named Whitefeather arriving in the Oregonian village of Tellecoma. Whitefeather brings with him a gun that can only be wielded by the one who most believes in the power of the law.
Get it? Caliber, Excalibur.
Meanwhile, at the Tellecoma work camp, a young woman named Gwen discovers a boy named Arthur taking care of a stray kitten at the camp. The two are then interrupted by a young Chinese immigrant named Sheng Yi, whose father has just been arrested after leading a work stoppage. Arthur runs off to tell his father, Army Captain Ulysses Pendragon, but the captain informs his son that there's nothing he can do. The law states that only the sheriff has jurisdiction over the camp. Ulysses then rides off to where one of his men has been killed. The discovery of an arrow at the scene has led some of the soldiers to believe one of the local tribes is behind it. Ulysses doesn't rush to judgment, though, and decides to investigate the crime further. All of this gets witnessed by Whitefeather, and later he approaches Ulysses and gives him the gun, believing that the captain truly believes in the law. Unbeknownst to Captain Pendragon, the real people behind the murder are his own superiors, who are in cahoots with the corrupt leaders of Tellecoma, namely one Talbot Leary. When Ulysses sets up a meeting with the Nez Perce tribe, both he and the tribe members are jumped. Ulysses points the gun at his attackers, only for it to jam. Afterwards, Whitefeather comes across Ulysses' body and retains the gun. As this happens, Arthur is informed of his father's death.
Now, in the actual Arthurian tales, Arthur's father, Uther Pendragon, is a little less reputable than his comic book counterpart. Uther had actually helped Merlin bring these stones that would form Stonehenge over from Ireland, and then convinced the wizard to allow Uther to be turned into the Duke of Cornwall, and he then used this ability to sleep with the Duke's wife, Arthur being the result of that tryst.
7 years later, Arthur returns to his family's ranch with his uncle Hector. The Pendragons find out that the property has been rented out thanks to Talbot O'Leary enforcing an eminent domain law. Even though he has a rightful claim to the land, Arthur chooses to leave. The group returns to Tellecoma, where a six-shooter festival is being held. One of the people with a stand is Whitefeather, who is charging people for an attempt at firing the gun. While walking through town, Arthur catches a brief glimpse of Gwen as she and Sheng Yi make their way to
Okay, it's a brothel. Guinevere in this book is a prostitute. Look, if you're looking for established feminism in the Old West, you're probably looking at the wrong part of American history.
Arthur convinces Hector to enter one of the shooting competitions. Hector wins, and the two prepare to leave town. That is until the man Hector beat confronts him. Accusing Hector of being a cheater, the man shoots Hector, killing him instantly. Arthur turns to the sheriff, but the sheriff claims the shooting was in self-defense. Furious, Arthur grabs the gun from Whitefeather's stand. He turns and fires it. The shot blows a hole straight through Hector's killer. Whitefeather then grabs Arthur, and the two hightail it out of town.
Obviously, Whitefeather is analogous to the wizard Merlin. Merlin was the son of an incubus and a human woman who, upon discovering Arthur, took the young king under his wing and taught him in the ways of true chivalry.
Whitefeather takes Arthur onto Nez Perce land and begins using several mystical chants in order to mask the two from the authorities. Months go by as Whitefeather begins training Arthur in the proper use of the gun. Meanwhile, Talbot issues a massive bounty on the two, which attracts bounty hunters from all around. One of these hunters manages to track down Whitefeather and Arthur. However, he is the only one willing to bring the two in alive and tries to peacefully negotiate a surrender. It doesn't work, and Arthur shoots him. Realizing the horrible mistake he's made, Arthur rushes to the man's side, except the man is relatively unharmed. Somehow, the gun has judged him innocent. It's then that Arthur recognizes the man as Lance Lake, a man who served in Captain Pendragon's regiment.
Yep, this would be Lancelot du Lac, one of Arthur's most trusted and loyal knights. That was until he had an affair with Arthur's wife Guinevere, which precipitated the downfall of Camelot.
Later, back in Telecoma, Gwen begins to turn in for the night, only to bump into Lance.
Wow, I didn't think we'd actually touch on the Lancelot-Guinevere relationship just yet.
Actually, Lance smuggles Gwen out of the brothel and reunites her with Arthur. It's not the only reunion, though, as it's revealed that Arthur's cousin Bedivere has also been hiding out in the town.
Sir Bedivere was one of the oldest and most trusted comrades of King Arthur. This one-handed knight was an occasional practitioner of dark magic, which frightened many people, but Sir Bedivere was always loyal to his king, and even returned the sword Excalibur to the Lady of the Lake after Arthur's death. Now, you may notice they haven't exactly touched much on the women in this story, in particular Gwen, who's analogous to Guinevere, and Morgan, who's analogous to Morgan Le Fay. Well, that's because the story doesn't touch much on them. I mean, Gwen is little more than window dressing, and Morgan only seems to serve the point of delivering ominous foreshadowing because she's a fortune teller.
Bedivere alerts the burgeoning group to a dire situation. Talbot Leary has set up a trap for Arthur using the father of Sheng Yi, who everyone previously thought dead. The team sets up a scenario in order to rescue the man and reunite him with his daughter. However, Leary catches wind of the plan and winds up kidnapping Sheng Yi as well. Leary then floods the local mine, trying to drown the miners inside, with Sheng Yi's father being one of them. Arthur and his crew manage to save the miners and race off to catch Leary before he hops on a train with Sheng Yi. At the train station, Arthur arrives and confronts Leary. Leary takes Sheng Yi hostage and tries to use her as a human shield. Arthur shoots. The blast goes through both Sheng Yi and Leary. Sheng Yi is unharmed and reunited with her father, while Leary is taken in. Later, Telecoma rejoices as Arthur is elected sheriff.
And so ends Caliber, First Canon of Justice. How was it? Well, it was a real mixed bag. The artwork is top-notch, but admittedly the story sort of drags in some places, and, well, several of the characters are really underdeveloped. I mean, I touched on the women earlier, but Arthur himself is kind of a blank slate at some points. And I get that they might have been setting up some parts for some later series, but from what I've been able to tell, there hasn't been another Caliber series. So, yeah, parts are just kind of left dangling. Also, this might be the first time I have to detract points for the structure of a book. While I was reading this, I have not picked this book up in, I'd say, somewhere around 3 to 4 years, and yet the spine broke, and now pages are barely hanging on, and some of them have started to shift around, which means soon they'll be falling out. Yeah, I kind of have to deduct some points to that. It just seems very cheaply made. And so, because of that, I'm going to have to give Caliber a C. Like I said, at least it falls into the average category. And given the previous reviews, it's certainly a step up from them. Well, let's see what we'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review.